What's up? Welcome to my diary. I'm Tatami, and today we're going to talk about privilege and how your privileges don't necessarily pass on to your child of color, to your child who is darker than you, your transracial adoptee, your mixed race child, your darker skinned child. Y'all need to get over it. This is going to upset some people, and I think it's because this is just an observation I've had over the last many decades, witnessing this not only with myself but with others. Is when your kid is in front of you, people follow a certain code because they recognize that your kid is attached to you, right? I think this would be less for lighter skinned people with darker skinned kids and more for people with like white privilege who either give birth to a mixed race child of color who obviously presents, at least partially, as a child of color, or a person who transracially adopts outside of their race, namely white people who typically have the funds for this and seem to be leading the charge on transracial adoption across the board. When your child is in front of you, say at church, at school, at a function of some sort, people will follow the rules. They understand that because that's your child, that child is connected to you, the community will come to understand and they will tell other people. People will start to know, and that will make you comfortable because people will know that this child is associated with you. The issue often arises when either you run into a stranger who isn't in the know, so automatically starts to question you or your child, or your child is out of your sight. So the first one is pretty easy to handle. It may upset you, it may rile you up a bit, but you're there. You're there to be mama bear, papa bear, whatever, and stand up for your child and, make a fuss and be like, what do you mean I can't birth this child? Or what do you mean that child? Like, why are you out here targeting the one random like Asian kid or black kid on the playground? Why are you doing that? What does that say about you? You're here to check these things. And this may make you feel vindicated. You may think, problem solved. And for now, this little battle has perhaps been solved. The issue comes when you erroneously believe that this cloak of protection follows your child throughout their lives. Because there are times when someone is going to show up to a function, an event where your kid is, and they're the only child of color in this event because we all live in segregated neighborhoods for the most part. It's pretty rare to live in really highly integrated. They say 80% of white people live with only white people for the most part. They're segregated neighborhoods. So when you adopt a child and bring them in, or say you give birth to a child and go back to your home city, what have you, chances are you are raising this child of color in a mostly white environment. Someone's going to find them. Someone's going to see it. It's going to stick out to them. And even though they're not going to like fully comprehend that they're doing it. But they need a narrative. They need to know what the hell is going on. Why is this person here? What is their backstory? Who brought them here? And they will accost your child. They will try to find out what's going on. They will not do it with a respectful tone of somebody who sees this person of color attached to a white person. They will just approach them as a total stranger, basically an intruder in their lives. And your child is going to have to mitigate that. That's something you're going to have to remember. It's something you're going to have to realize that you are not always going to be there. You are not always going to be there to say the narrative at the church, announce something at the school, announce something somewhere else, let people know the situation. That's just not your privilege. You're not going to be able to do that forever, especially as your child gets older and older and starts to be perceived as a grown person. Usually with your person of color child, that will happen substantially sooner than with your other kids. They will see a white 17-year-old girl and be like, this child. And then they will see a black 17-year-old girl and be like, she's fast. She's doing too much. She wild. So it's just like, you need to be able to accept this. You need to be able to understand this so that you can accurately prepare your child. Because if you prepare your child to believe that they're going to go out and about in the world holding white privilege within them, seeing how you get treated and believe fully that they're also going to be treated this way, you're setting them up for a world of hurt, disappointment, embarrassment, just trauma. And it's really not fair. It's really not fair when, your kid goes out in the world believing people are going to treat them a certain way, believing people are going to see them a certain way, and they have just been not adequately prepared at all. And so then they get the shock of a lifetime. And then they have to mitigate the fact that you're delusional. You don't quite get it, even though you're out here touting like, I adopted Black kids. I have a Black kid or half Black kid, whatever. You're out here like feeling like you did something, but in actuality, now your kid thinks they can't trust you because you think you did a job well done, well, perfect. And you've not set it up to be like, actually, when you're out of my sight, when you're beyond me, this is a reality you need to look out for. This is a reality you need to understand. This is something that my adoptive parents did not say. I just understood it after a certain amount of while. I understood that I'd have to explain myself. I understood that there would always be somebody's aunt would randomly be there. Somebody's, something would randomly be there. And I also I just knew. I knew that especially because I was transracial, that there was just questions. People want narratives, especially white people. They just want the full story, and if you don't give them the full story, they will make a full story, and the full story is never pretty. And is that really what you want for your kid, to be having people be writing narratives for them? Or do you want your child to actually be prepared and understand that there is systemic racism? You can raise them in this hopeful ideal that 20 years from now, when they're older, this stuff won't be a problem. I hope so, but teach them just in case. Prepare them just in case. Let them know what's going on just in case. And understand, in your core of cores, that should be a worry you have, something that you hold, because you have to understand that you're not only adopting, but you're adopting somebody who will never have what you have, who will never be perceived the way you're perceived. When you walk in a store and you're seen a certain way, your child is not going to be seen that same way. So that's why I said it's not just for transracial adoptive parents, right? But also for people who give birth to biracial people, and also by extension, people who are lighter skinned who give birth to people who are darker skinned. Now, there is I know someone out there is going to be like, but what about the reverse? What about people who aren't fully accepted into the Black community and therefore don't get the privileges of the Black community? To that I say, there's just not so much evidence of mixed Black people or transracial adopted white people. You know what I mean? First off, what's your claim? The same way white people don't really let your Black child claim the white community as theirs. There's not really a claim for a white or otherwise adopted child of the Black community to, claim all this as theirs. You know what I'm saying? It's still even in that regard. You're not going to just be able to claim random shit. And further, it always amuses me when people perceive all of these just privileges the Black community has. The white community thinks we get everything for free. Even the Native community. I've had people leave me comments well, why I wish people would talk about our holidays, or why can't we have a holiday? And I'm like, who is stopping you? A lot of people will forget that Black people will struggle with a cause, a holiday. We will have that discussion amongst each other, around each other, online, in books. Back before online, it was in books and pamphlets and poetry, continuing the tradition for decades and decades and decades. And then randomly in 2002, 2015, 2020, it will blow up and people will be mad at us why don't we have this attention? And I'm like, honey, no one is stopping you from doing your own quiet struggle for 30, 50, 60, 70 years and then hoping that it will go viral. You welcome at it. It seems Black folks got a lot of flavor, so that's why we keep going viral over our struggles, and we know how to present them correctly. We know how to market them so that people are interested, because that's what we do. We communicate with each other. We build together. We create art together. It's just kind of how it is. So it's nobody's stopping other people, but yet and still people get bitter and think we have all this stuff. And it's no, nobody's giving us these things. We're kind of building it from scratch, reaching up and taking, when we have nothing, we somehow find something to use, right? That's hoodoo. That's conjure, is, using what you have to create something more. And so, I just don't agree. I don't think it goes both ways. any privileges that someone perceives as the Black community having or wishing they have is typically rooted in like fetishizing stereotypes, wanting to be like perceived as cool or an influencer or a creator or in with the in crowd, that type of thing. It's not like tangible financial turn down from a job, someone calls the cops on your son because he's walking home in the gated neighborhood, and that's a new neighbor who doesn't realize that the person down the block from them adopted a young Black boy. You know what I'm saying? It's just not the same. You just can't just sit here and like, oh, Juneteenth, Black History Month, MLK Day, civil rights. Like, honey, when we get it, y'all get it. So I don't understand where people get complaints or they think like affirmative action, like the number one person who's gotten anything out of affirmative action is white women, but yet and still Black people have to hold that brunt. Sorry, my husband needed to come in. But anyways, my point is that I just don't think that there's a comparable opposite to that, because the benefits of the white community with, you know, being able to get loans, being trusted, your name being something that people feel is like they like the cut of its jib, so they'll hire you, or like it's just the culture of the practices. You really honestly just have so many privileges, and recognizing in your soul, understanding no matter how well you raise that child who is not white, clearly not white especially, there's privileges they will never have. There's things you will never be able to give them. Set them up for success. Set yourself up for success too, by getting in that mindset and understanding it fundamentally. Understand that as the adult in the room, so that you can act accordingly and have these important conversations with your kid before they go out in the world and really get shut down, and then they think you're untrustworthy. They think you're delusional. They think you're running around here thinking you solved racism because you had sex, or because you paid thousands of dollars and signed a certificate. You think you solved something. They'll start to like, they'll still love you probably. I'm not saying that, but they'll start to think in their mind like, dude, like you can't talk to mom about this. You can't talk to dad about this. And is that really what you want? I don't think it's what you want. I wouldn't want that as a parent. Both my twins came out slightly darker than me, but they're like, you know, medium between me and my husband. And I don't really think that the color issue will come into as much with them. But, you know, I do have, all my siblings are dark skinned. And so like, I've just seen it. I've witnessed it. I've lived it. And it's an experience that, and just to be clear, I do have like a couple siblings, like, who came out lighter skinned, but they are full Black, like, so at any rate. But the rest of them are dark skinned. So my point is just that I've witnessed this. I've seen it. I've seen the like delusion where you think like your kid's gonna live the life you are for whatever reason. And I just think it's just set your kid up for failure in a lot of ways. Like, why send them out there confused and understanding, and then they end up getting their like the wind slapped out of them, and then they're set back because they have to go through this then in the real world, being taught these lessons by strangers, instead of just having a simple conversation with you, so that when it happens, they're able to think like, oh, you're right, of course, and understand how to start moving accordingly. It's not something that's going to just take them by surprise, totally out of the blue, especially because once they get in their later teens, that's when the community will start being wishy-washy about them. When they're a little kid with a gap tooth and like the big smile, everybody loves them. You know what I mean? Like everyone's going to invite them up. And then once they hit like 12, 15, they're just going to be perceived differently by the majority of the community. And before then, you should know, especially if your kid is starting to be one of those bigger kids, they're starting to grow. Understand, people are going to be intimidated. School teachers are going to be intimidated. They're going to see their friends acting out in a way and think they can act out that way. And honey, you can't, because they're going to see Jim do it. And they're going to think, haha, it's so funny. And then they're going to see your son do it. And they're going to be like, he could have knocked down a table. He could have hit me. He could have, a pencil could have gone flying. He's trying to be dangerous. He's trying to be, and they're just going to perceive it as way more threatening, crazy adult than any other kid in the classroom, especially if your kid's the only child of color. They're just going to stand out as a sore thumb. So honey, like, I'm just trying to be real with you. Your kids don't get your privileges all the time. This can apply to other things, but right now I'm just applying it to race. adopting transracially or having a mixed race kid, think about it. Think about those conversations you're going to have. Think about how it's going to have to be when you're raising this child. And I hope you prepare yourself for it, or at least prepare yourself for the fact that that conversation is the opportunity to have that conversation is going to come up with your kid. And I hope you're prepared for it, or at least willing to jump in feet first and try something, try it out, try to talk with your child, try and teach them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying prepare a speech today, but, you know, think about it. Think about what you're going to say. So like when the time comes, you'll know, oh, my time to step up. This is my moment to step up and help this child who I brought into this world, who I brought into my life, who I chose. And this is mine. This is my child who I dedicated myself to raising appropriately for the next generation. One of the ways that you can do that is by setting them up to understand what's the real world's going to be like. Because the best case scenario, like no one's going to be racist 20 years from now. Realistically, not in our lifetime, beloved, not in our lifetime. So you're going to have to just talk with them and make sure they understand it. But above all else, make sure you understand and you're operating accordingly to what your child's needs are. All right, may your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads, and I will see you next time.